Porsche just dumped heaps of information on the new Macan EV, as well as a new roadmap for their electric future. Porsche fine-tunes e-performance for future series models. My name's Kirk, this is Kirky Cars, channel dedicated to electrified vehicles. If that's up your alley, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button if you're excited for Porsche. Porsche is picking up speed with their electric vision. So they've redefined their roadmap. So by 2025, more than half of all their new Porsche cars are going to be electrified, either fully, so battery electric, or as plug-in hybrids. Got to keep in mind, Porsche is still working on synthetic fuels as well. So don't think they're giving up on the internal combustion engine anytime soon. But by 2030, their target is for more than 80% of its new car deliveries to be fully battery electric. And guess what? They have a new platform that they're co-developing with Audi. It's called the PPE, or the Premium Platform Electric. This new platform gives Porsche the opportunity for higher profitability and gives high volume models high technical performance standards. So the scalable performance platform is going to be what's underpinning the all-new, all-electric Macan with its 800-volt architecture. They're saying the Macan EV will be the sportiest model in its segment, as well as have reproducible best-in-class performance values, and development targets include long-range capacity and high-performance fast charging. And for top variants, engineers are creating a dynamic, sporty driving experience with fully variable, electronically controlled rear differential and a so-called performance rear axle. And the electric motor for the rear is actually positioned behind the rear axle. Just hope that you don't get rear-ended in your new Porsche Macan EV. And this gives the Porsche Macan a much more rear-wheel drive based all-wheel drive system. So let's talk powertrain. Porsche is saying top spec models have 450 kilowatts, which is over 600 horsepower, and torque of over 1,000 Newton meters, which is over 730 pound-feet. You'll be able to get the new Macan EV in rear-wheel drive if you want. We already mentioned all-wheel drive. The new 800-volt charging system significantly reduces charging time and lowers the weight of the high-voltage cables and space required for them. And let's get into the nitty-gritty of their new electric motors. They are featuring permanently excited synchronous electric motors, or PSMs, with hairpin winding. In this design, the rotor of the AC motor is fitted with permanent magnets that generate a permanent magnetic field in the motor. And in comparison to asynchronous motors, PSMs offer higher power and torque densities, greater efficiency, and better reproducibility of the power output. To maximize power density, the water jacket cooling was optimized in comparison to the Taycan. An example of the further comprehensive optimizations in the PSMs is what is known as the double V lamination, the arrangement of the magnets within the motors. And silicon carbide semiconductors are used instead of silicon in the pulse inverter on the rear axle, significantly reducing switching losses in the pulse inverter and enabling higher switching frequencies. So let's talk battery now. The battery will be able to charge in less than 25 minutes from 5 to 80%. Total capacity should be around 100 kilowatt hours. And there aren't going to be any larger or smaller battery packs because the sizing is based on Porsche's philosophy. They're looking to balance range, performance, and sustainability, and having one battery pack looks to do all that. This new battery features 12 modules with prismatic cells. The mixing ratio of nickel, cobalt, and manganese is 8:1:1, and the battery achieves a higher energy density. And with the upgraded platform and 800-volt charging technology, they're aiming of higher than 270 kilowatts than we see in the Taycan. And if your charging station is only 400 volts, check out what Porsche's doing. The Macan uses bank charging for the first time, whereby corresponding high voltage switches or gates are automatically switched in the battery before actual charging process begins. This effectively splits the 800-volt battery into two batteries with a nominal voltage of 400 volts each that can be charged in parallel on one 400-volt charging station without an additional HV booster. And if necessary, the state of charge of both of the battery halves are first aligned before they are charged together. Porsche has also upgraded its packaging and calls this integrated power box, which in addition to the cables required and the weight, has also reduced the cost. The box saves space by combining 3 components: the onboard AC charger, the high voltage heater, and the DC-DC converter. So let's get into this rear performance axle. Like I said, you don't want to be rear-ended with the motor hanging behind the rear axle. It is positioned particularly far back, resulting in a slightly rear-focused weight balance with a ratio of 48 to 52%. In combination with the dynamic torque distribution of the all-wheel drive and the rear axle steering, the powerful electric motors on the rear axle ensure agility when accelerating out of a bend. The Macan EV will have a completely revised double wishbone axle with detached strut level at the front. Its kinematics and elastokinematics enable improved responsiveness, steering precision, and straight line driving. The multi-link axle at the rear is connected to the body via an elastically mounted subframe, while the rear electric drive unit is fastened directly to the structure at 4 points. This has a positive effect on the driving dynamics with precise wheel guidance and high transverse rigidity, which also reduces NVH. Top versions of the Porsche Macan will feature Torque Vectoring Plus as standard, an electronically controlled differential lock on the rear axle. This control strategy is independent of the respective driving situation and ensures greater traction, driving stability, and transverse dynamics. The steering behavior and precision are supported by targeted dynamic braking interventions on the rear axle. Porsche's traction management systems make use of the conceptual advantages of the electric powertrain. Like the Taycan, the Macan EV will have an all-wheel concept with 1 electric motor per axle. The 2 electric motors enable fast, precise, all-wheel control and fully variable, and depending on the driving program selected and the respective driving situation, demand-based torque distribution between the front and rear axles. This is beneficial to steerability and the directional control of the front axle. At the same time, this packaging also enables first rear axle steering in the Macan. It resolves an old conflict of objectives and combines agility in urban traffic with stability and driving precision on the motorway. At speeds up to around 80 kilometers per hour, the rear wheels steer in the opposite direction of the front wheels with a steering angle at the rear axle of up to 5 degrees. The virtual shortening of the wheelbase results in a more dynamic steering response when cornering. At the same time, maneuvering is easier as the turning circle is reduced by about 1 meter. At speeds above approximately 80 kilometers per hour, the rear wheels steer in the same direction as the front axle. As a result, the wheelbase is virtually lengthened, further increasing the driving stability, for example, when changing lanes on the motorway. With rear axle steering comes a 15% more direct steering ratio to the front axle, and the Porsche active suspension management is combined with the air suspension in the all-electric Macan, but it may be also combined with the steel suspension. The system reacts to the condition of the road, but also to the speed, longitudinal, lateral acceleration, accelerator, pedal modulation, steering behavior, and the position level of the car. Lastly, Porsche's active suspension management gives better performance. The 2-valve shock absorbers will be an all-new feature in the PASM of the future Macan. They offer improved performance due to a significantly greater damping characteristic. Also, the 2-valve shock absorbers can be adjusted independently of each other, providing an appreciable increase in comfort. Additionally, depending on the speed, the body can be lowered in combination with the air suspension. Of course, this improves aerodynamics as well as EV range. The wheel and tire scenario for the Macan EV is also typical of Porsche, especially when it comes to the mixed tires, which will be even more pronounced in the current model. The wheel widths on the front and rear axles will differ even more significantly in order to accommodate the rear-focused weight distribution for more grip and better driving dynamics. And the wheels will range up to 22 inches. Heading to the EV spreadsheet, I don't think there's going to be anything on here that will be able to touch the Porsche in terms of driving dynamics when it comes to an SUV, that is. So here we have the Macan, up to 600 horsepower, up to 730 pound-feet of torque. I think base models should come around 300 horsepower, around 400 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 is slow as 5 seconds, which is still really fast. And of course, the top models around 3 seconds. Well, I didn't have this earlier, but we know it's a 100 kilowatt hour battery. And range is hard to guess because there's going to be so many different trim levels, but I'd say on the highest performance models, maybe around 250 miles. It could be more. The battery is fairly large. If we look at the Audi Q8 e-tron, that gives us 270 miles of range. So a slightly smaller battery on the Macan, also a slightly smaller vehicle, should give us similar-ish range. So minimum 250, and it could have up to 300 miles on certain trims. Starting price, I have no idea. I put 75K because that puts it at where the Audi e-tron is. It could be more than that as well. If we look at the GV70, I'm guessing that's going to cost around the same price. And we also have the GV60, which these prices actually have been increased. So they're about 60 to 70K now. And that's just ballparking it. If you look at the performance with the overboost of the GV60, we get 483 horsepower. No, it's not going to drive anywhere close to as satisfying or as accurate as a Macan. But in terms of just straight acceleration in a straight line, the GV60 performance will probably be quicker than a lot of the Macans out there because it can do 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, in some instances even quicker than that. It is brutally fast. Make sure to watch my review on the GV60 performance on my main channel. But let's not forget about Polestar. Their number one enemy, Polestar has identified is Porsche. And so we have the Polestar 3 coming. The Polestar 3 is more of like a Cayenne sort of size is what I'm expecting. The Polestar 4 though will be a direct Macan fighter. And if we look at the numbers, Polestar 3 comes in and the Polestar 4 will have the same power numbers more than likely. Comes in almost 500 horsepower base. So the Macan might have an opportunity here to come in at a lesser price with less power than the Polestar. But when we look at the Polestar 4 performance, over 500 horsepower, even then the Polestar 4 will not be able to touch the Macan with its near 600 horsepower in those top trims. Now the Polestar 3 will also cost a lot less probably when you're talking about just pure horsepower. And it's great to have competition. I feel like I'm updating this list all the time for the luxury tiers. Most of these are crossovers. I haven't put in some of the really expensive sedans or anything like that, but this gives you an idea of where the Macan is going to be. And I cannot wait to see what Porsche brings out when it's time for production of this new Macan EV. Deliveries from the Macan EV are slated for 2024. So I would expect orders to begin late 2023 with deliveries in early 2024. So I'm going to end it there. I know it's a lot of information, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button. Subscribe for more Porsche electrified updates. They're a lot of fun to talk about, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.